Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. Senate Committee Room, A305. Did you know that you can watch the Senate live on YouTube? Visit the channel by browsing to youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia. That's youtube.com/@Senate of Virginia.
Good morning. And I will ask the clerk to open the roll just to make sure we have a quorum.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. Two housekeeping bills are on our docket today. First bill is House Bill 1777. It is identical to Senate Bill 1406. The patron was Senator Salim. Senator Salim's bill was voted out of the Senate 40-0. So I would like a motion. Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Every year. I know you do. That's why I love it.
Ayes 10, no 0.
Thank you. The next identical bill is House Bill 2754. The patron is Delegate Singh. Delegate Singh's bill is identical to my Senate Bill 870, and my bill was reported out of the Senate 40-0. I would like a motion to report. Okay, 2754, there was a motion and a second.
Ayes 10, no 0.
Reports. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Let's see who I have. Is Delegate Askew here? Okay. Colleagues, I turn your attention to House Bill 1989, and I believe there are amendments.
Madam Chair, I move the amendment.
Okay, the amendments have been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, staff, are the amendments posted, or can you? They are posted. Would you just read them for us so folks can focus before I turn to the delegate?
Yes, Madam Chair. It is in the nature of a substitute, and it should be posted on LIS. The changes in the substitute are on lines 31 to 33. It adds a definition of delivery agent. And then on lines 231 to 232, it adds some additional places where cannabis products cannot be delivered. And these places are military-based child day center, school or correctional facility, or the state capitol. And then also at the very end of the bill, on lines 268 to 274, it adds a new subsection E that clarifies that all transportation or delivery of cannabis products, whether it's by an employee or delivery agent, shall comply with the provisions of the subtitle and any board regulations, and that the board can suspend or revoke any privileges to deliver such products if such employee or delivery agent does not comply with the regulations.
ABC framework, so that's why those changes were added. But I will now turn to our patron. Go ahead, Delegate Askew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as substituted, I appreciate you reading those off. But it accomplishes and works to accomplish two things. When the Virginia General Assembly created the medical cannabis program, the product offerings were very limited. The code had not been updated to appropriately differentiate between the various types of approved medical cannabis products, when determining what a dose is and how the label should correctly display these amounts. The bill directs edible and topical medical cannabis products to be labeled using milligrams and directs inhalable cannabis products labels to include the percentage of THC and/or CBD included in the product. The key is to ensuring and improving overall patient safety. This change will make labels significantly easier to read and will more clearly communicate to patients the dose of their medication. Second, it maintains existing patient access and provides certain prohibitions on medical cannabis delivery, which are some of the changes in the substitute stated. But delivery is an important aspect of patient access. In some parts of the Commonwealth, patients may be 2 hours or more from a brick and mortar dispensing facility. A delivery of medical cannabis to any location is allowed. Now, allowing medical cannabis delivery is in line with how we deliver prescription drugs and some alcohols, even opioids. The bill maintains the allowance to deliver to residents, temporary residents, or business with certain restrictions. Deliveries can only be made in person to patients or their registered agents, and patients must verify their ability at the time of delivery. If they are not present, delivery cannot be made. This does not permit DoorDash or any Uber Eats or any delivery services to do this, and that does not change that. But these changes will improve overall safety and access to medical cannabis for patients that currently use it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Colleagues, do you have any questions? I consulted with the delegate and with the stakeholder groups and with a regulatory officer at the CCA who is here, I believe, if you do have questions. So.
No, that's the change we made. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Senator Perry, did you have a question? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Senator Ross, let me just, if you have a question, then I'll just quickly ask if anybody has any comment.
I just have a comment, and I'll speak to the bill at the appropriate time.
Okay. All those in favor of this bill, please come forward and at least indicate your preference or your.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jack Page. I'm one of the founders of Dharma Pharmaceuticals. We are the pharmaceutical processor in Far Southwest. Appreciate the patron for bringing this bill that is important for patient safety and access, especially in rural Virginia. Delivery is a tool that we use to reach patients. We've been doing it since October of 2020 and not had any issues. Urge you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. J.M. Padini with the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Thank the patron for carrying this measure, and we support the bill.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Randy Pearson with Two Capitals Consulting on behalf of Cannabis, the licensed medical processor, and HSA 4. We strongly support the bill and thank Delegate Askew for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it's a familiar face.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, David May on behalf of Jushi, the HSA 2 medical cannabis processor. This bill cleans up some labeling provisions. It ensures safe delivery provisions. It ensures, most importantly, that anyone delivering it is subject to the safety and security protocols. Under some regulatory language, only employees would be subject to. This makes sure everyone is brought in and is subject to the same rules. Thank you.
Is anybody in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I've had my light on, sorry.
Some questions. Okay. Yeah, okay. Before we make a motion, I'll have you speak. Senator Reeves, and then Senator Jordan, and then Senator Rouse.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to thank Delegate Askew. I don't vote for marijuana as a former DEA guy, but I want to thank him and the folks that have been working on this. I've always believed that if we lose the policy decision, and that's our policy, to be the best at it. So I really appreciate you cleaning this up and working with everybody to give us the best policy in the whole United States. Thank you.
Senator Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say to the patron, thank you for bringing this bill. This is going to mean so much for people that suffer with everything from Alzheimer's to Parkinson's and everything in between. And thank you for being thoughtful about this legislation and making sure we can move that forward.
Madam Chair,
Senator Head.
if I could just also weigh in, as one who I never do anything to support recreational cannabis, but I would much rather people be getting relief from pain from this than opioids, and anything we can do. I think the medical space is a completely different one, and so I'm in support of this, and thank you very much for bringing it, because it not only fixes the delivery, but also clears up the content notification of that, and that's really important for folks to know what they're actually taking. So thank you for this.
Thank you. Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to sound redundant with everyone on the committee, but I want to thank the patron. But I also want to thank you, Madam Chair, as well for your work, not only on this legislation, but on legislation throughout the year, especially the really tough ones where they seem to catch a fever, then fire. You have done tons of work behind the scenes to ensure us committee members understand and have the best version of the bill before us, trying to find peace throughout the valley. So I want to thank you for all your work that you've done as well. And with that, I motion to report the bill.
Well, I appreciate all this.
It might be the legislation.
Yeah.
Are there colleagues, do any of you have proxies?
Ayes 11, noes 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Next patron, 2105, Delegate Kent. This is an interesting bill.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to present 2105. This bill, to explain it, will facilitate collaboration specifically with regional jails and local law enforcement. The goal is to ensure a structured approach of reporting and investigating only the most serious violent incidences through a memorandum of understanding. We really see this bill as a best practice. It'll create a process in ensuring safety of those that are incarcerated by looking at the most serious violent crimes and assaults and offenses, and using a memorandum of understanding to understand the process of which those should be investigated. Happy to answer any questions and appreciate your consideration.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, Senator Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the process now? We understand that, at least I understand, that a lot of violent acts happens within the confines of jail. And so how are they reported now and with law enforcement, or is that kept in-house? Like, I just don't understand the process now.
Yes.
Someone could explain it to me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Ross, that's exactly what we're uncovering as a problem, and what was brought forward to me by folks that said some regional jails don't have a process. And so unfortunately, sometimes these serious violent crimes are actually not being investigated or within the time frame that's needed to investigate them, when it ends up happening a week, 2, 3, a month later, then obviously evidence is lost, and there's no way to actually create a criminal investigation. So realistically, this hopefully will address the lack thereof. And when serious, and we're talking murder and manslaughter and those types of things, when those are not investigated because they are handled in-house, and that should be something that local law enforcement should be involved with.
So, Madam Chair. So if there is a very, very violent violent crime within the confines of jail, aren't those prisoners still held accountable, but or they get a charge with the violent crime? Who charges them, and then are you saying those charges come at a later time, or not?
So, Madam Chair, criminal charges would have to happen with law enforcement. So maybe there are charges that could be brought within the jail, so they do have their own process and procedure. But we would like for law enforcement to be able to criminally charge if someone has a serious violent act occurring in a jail, and for those to happen at a timely, prompt manner. So sometimes also what happens is those inmates, if an incident happens, is then relocated to another facility, and that has happened. And so you have a violent crime, and then they remove the person. So then no criminal investigation can happen, because then it's very hard for a Commonwealth's attorney or local law enforcement to then get that inmate back that maybe was the accused in a crime. So it's really to help streamline the process and just kind of create that chain of command and a process in order for those to investigate.
Last question, and just so I wrap my head around it, and I think this is,
Sure.
I think I'm getting what you're understanding. MOU with local law enforcement agencies to ensure they can properly investigate violent crimes or bring charges when there will be. My question is due process in terms of if an inmate, most of these inmates are confined, they're in close quarters, and I'm sure many of them would claim self-defense. So I'm just understanding, how would law enforcement take that into account in the MOU? Are they required to have a lawyer? Would they still have the same rights, or where do their rights fall?
Absolutely. This bill would not affect any of the process of actually the investigation. It's just saying that a regional jail would have a MOU with a law enforcement agency regarding these crimes, but it wouldn't affect, obviously, whatever an inmate's rights would be or whatever the process of the investigation would be. It's just creating more of a best practice of a chain of a command, for lack of a better word. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll just say, when I was a prosecutor, we prosecuted crimes of all types that occurred within the jail. That could be bringing contraband into the jail. That could be, malicious woundings that occurred in the jail. It was just like any other crime. You know what I mean? You went in and interviewed the witnesses. They're particularly difficult sometimes to prosecute because of people not wanting to cooperate and come in and testify and those kinds of things. But there was no issue with collecting evidence and things like that. And as far as it relates to people being transferred, maybe because they're believed to be the person who was responsible for whatever the act was or whatever, that I wouldn't see that as an impediment to the actual charging. They would just bring them to court, transport them. We do transport orders all the time for folks across the Commonwealth. Can you I'm seeing here in the language it says shall promptly report to the primary local law enforcement agency. I think is that language, I don't know if council can say if that language is defined in the code, what primary local law enforcement agency means?
Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Perry. I don't believe it's defined, but I think when the term is used, it's trying to distinguish between jurisdictions where the sheriff's office is the primary local law enforcement versus the police department. Since some jurisdictions, the sheriff's office is primary law enforcement investigating crimes, and then some jurisdictions that have a police department, that's the primary local law enforcement. So I think it's trying to just make that distinction, whoever's primary law enforcement.
Senator Perry. Madam Chair, I understand what we're trying to get at there. I just am a little curious about that part of the language, because I totally get what you're trying to do. In Loudoun, we just have, it would be like you're referencing like the sheriff's department. I know who you're referencing because that's where our jail is located, but typically the people who investigate are the law enforcement agency where the potential crime occurs, right? And so I don't know if there's an issue with, in Fairfax, obviously they have a sheriff's department, they control the jails, and a police department who does really more of the criminal investigation side. And I assume you're trying to get the police department involved to investigate.
Madam Chair, could I address that?
Yes, of course.
We worked a lot on that language, and obviously with our legal counsel in committee. And one of the reasons that we chose those words was also that the regional jail could choose, because we did have some incidences where.
I'm sorry, you said could or could not choose?
Could
choose.
So we did have an instance where we had one jail in the state where they preferred to use state police because they had their sheriff very involved with the jail. So it would just allow for the regional jail, if they wanted to also use state police to investigate, that those decisions could be made locally, or to choose the sheriff's office or the local, city or town police. But that's why we use those words, in order to provide that flexibility in case you wanted to choose a different, based on your geography.
Madam Chair.
I would just say, I don't know that in that case, in the example you just gave, Madam Chair, that for instance, state police, I would not refer to them as the primary law enforcement agency. I'm not sure that language would really refer to that issue that you're talking about. Of course, state police could come in and do the investigation. I would suggest that maybe the better language is the law enforcement agency best suited to conduct the investigation, right? And then that gives them, I think, the flexibility. I actually think if you say primary local law enforcement agency, I wouldn't refer to the Virginia State Police in that format.
A friendly amendment. Ma'am. And sorry, I hope I didn't misspeak in terms of that primary local law enforcement could then say, I would like to pivot this to state police because I have a conflict of interest. That's kind of where that was stemming from.
Senator Perry, who would decide the best appropriate law enforcement agency?
I mean, I assume it would be the superintendent of any regional in the jurisdiction where such correctional facility is located. It's act of violence that occurs within such correctional facility.
However, best suited.
Let me ask General Counsel if they feel that we're taking off any nebulous interpretation and sort of clarifying.
Madam Chair.
Yes. And then I will go to Senator Jordan. Go ahead.
This.
Are you speaking to
to this
Senator?
point.
Okay. Meg, Taylor, hold on for a second. Go ahead, Senator.
Madam Chair, to Senator Perry's point, I was doing a lot with TDOs and reading of this the past couple of years, and we actually talk about using this exact term, and we had this fight like 2 or 3 years ago, and I want to say it's like 37 something, but wherever we talk about TDOs, we do define it like this.
You mean you define primary local law enforcement?
They talk about it in this generic terminology. It's been used previously or referenced. When we talked about transportation, I believe, at TDOs.
Taylor, did you want to?
I think that's a slightly different issue.
Yes, Madam Chair. I did just want to note and clarify that the language of the bill already says that it's going to be the law enforcement agency in the jurisdiction where the regional jail is located. So it's already tied to the jurisdiction where the jail is. And I think the primary word is it is used often in the code. And I think, for example, Hanover County, I hope I'm not speaking incorrectly, their sheriff's department is the primary law enforcement. I don't believe they have a police department. I hope that's not incorrect. Someone correct me. So when we're saying primary law enforcement agency in Hanover, it would be the Hanover Sheriff's Department in the jurisdiction where Pamunkey is, if that helps, because it's tied to the jurisdiction.
Madam Chair, I agree with Ms. May. I think that is what the language says, but I think it's odd because if you're talking about Virginia State Police coming in to investigate, I don't think that's what's encompassed in this language, because it's saying the primary local law enforcement agency where the essentially crime occurred.
Right.
Which would not be the Virginia State Police. It would be whoever that local people are.
Absolutely. We were just trying to make it broad enough just to ensure that primary local was the first one that you would obviously go to in order to create the memorandum of understanding in that jurisdiction, which hopefully B would cover as well.
I would think the MOU could
outline
flesh this out, and the question for us is whether in the statute we're giving enough direction on who the parties should be with the MOU.
Yes, ma'am.
And so far, I'm convinced that we're giving enough direction, but I'm always open to suggestions. Senator Rouse.
Madam Chair, after hearing the clarification on that, the jurisdiction in which the facility lies in, and that will be the primary law enforcement agency. I think that helps clarify primary for me. Also, note in the city of Virginia Beach, we have two. We have the city of Virginia Beach Police and we have sheriffs. But we actually, in our city charter, in our city code, the Virginia Beach Police is actually our primary law enforcement agency, which takes precedence over the sheriff's office. They share authority, but Virginia Beach Police is the primary. But I think it's, in my mind, it's clear.
Well, and also the Board of Local and Regional Jails will likely be issuing a policy on this. So, and they have been part of the conversation. Mike Edwards is not here. So Mike Edwards is here. Mr. Edwards, have you listened to the conversation as intently as you usually do? Good. Okay.
Mike Edwards on behalf of the Association of Regional Jails. Happy to answer any questions. I was listening to it. Senator Perry referenced that often state police can be involved. We have to pick up the phone and call if there's a felony in the jail.
I guess the question is whether this language is clear enough in terms of who we think the appropriate parties should be.
I listened to Delegate Kent's response to that. There are jails that would prefer to call state police in some instances. That's the information I have, Madam Chair. So if the MOU is going to allow us to pick up the phone and call state police first, that would be helpful because that happens. If it's a courtesy call to the local law enforcement, happy to do that as well. It's really, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's actually very, very helpful. I don't mean to interrupt you at all. I think that if we want to, I think it might be helpful to include that in the bill, that we would like to make sure that Virginia State Police could be looped in and used as an option if the jail would prefer for them to be the investigator. I think we would want to codify that.
Why don't you make that as an amendment?
I'm gonna defer to Ms. May down there on the dais and see what she thinks about where that would best go.
We just create these situations.
Allowing state police to get involved.
Taylor's really good at this, though. So
Taylor, we'll let
Madam
you
Chair.
wordsmith. Go ahead.
Can I just clarify, with the language, do you want to require that all regional jails also promptly report to state police, or have it more of a just allow if they'd like to? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Are you going to speak to the amendment?
I'm going to speak to the bill and the amendment. if
Okay.
that's okay.
All right. The amendment, an amendment has been offered and it's been seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, and the patron perceives this as friendly.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Hold on.
Madam Chair, I need clarity. Because she stated that this would require all, no.
No, it's an or.
It's an or.
It's an or.
It's an
Madam
or.
Chair.
Okay, great.
And Senator Rouse, right now, the bill does require a report to the primary local law enforcement, but if the amendment you're suggesting is just that they may also report to state police, I can craft it in a way that's a may.
Thank you.
Senator Van Valkenburg and then Senator Reeves. I think he's speaking to the
Well,
motion.
I can speak to the amendment as well.
Senator
Madam
Reeves.
Chair, having worked quite a bit in this, if you look at a facility like Prince William County, they don't have, the sheriff's office does not run the jail. So when they have an incident, they call Prince William County Police. In a lot of the other jurisdictions where you have sheriff's departments are the primary law enforcement agency, they need to have the ability to pivot to the state police in case there's a conflict of interest. So that it happens daily, all the time, of who you have to have come in. I literally have spent on a task force where they pull in other agencies because they have, when they're investigating some of those specific crimes in the jails, they need another jurisdiction to come in because they could have, and Senator Perry could talk to this as well, maybe a corrections or a sheriff deputy that's facilitating contraband coming in. So they'll bring in an outside agency. So the more flexibility we give in this as defined in the MOU, the better.
I concur with that. Okay, so Senator Van Valkenburg. Okay, all right. Colleagues, the amendment is before us. All those, and it's been, a motion has been made, it's been seconded by Senator Rouse. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And now the bill is before us. Okay.
Thank you.
Motion has been made to report as amended. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you,
Thank
committee.
you, Delegate Kent. Colleagues, if you want to speak, it helps me if you put yourself into the queue, then I can just look up. Okay, our last bill, House Bill 2457, Patron Delegate Glass. And this is on the State Board of Social Services regulations and application for and use of foster care benefits.
Gratitude, Madam Chair. So House Bill 2457 this is with regards to the application of military survivor benefits for foster children. There are a myriad of reasons, Madam Chair, that children end up in our foster system. If a child loses their parents, there should be no reason for the state to be charging that child for their services and under their care with the benefits that they got for surviving after losing their parents. Right now, we have about 14 children with military survivor benefits that their benefits have been applied for them without their knowledge, without their caretaker's knowledge, and when they get out of foster care, they no longer have those benefits. So what this bill would do is require that the Department of Social Services, the local, the DLSS, if they apply for those benefits for those children, we're specifically going after military survivor benefits first, and we're going to go after the other survivor benefits next. If they do that there's a requirement for a trust for that child, so that upon completion of their time in foster care, that they have the ability to get off on a good foot because they don't have parents that they lost. And then there is a requirement that those benefits cannot be used. We're charging kids. All the children in foster care do not get charged, but these specific children are being charged for their care. So the money cannot be used for their care while in foster care under the state. The cost of this is, and a notification, I think I said that there will be a notification to the guardian, the child, if any benefits are being applied for on their behalf. The cost for this is very minimal. For it to set up a legal trust, it's upwards to about $3,000. And then average ongoing foster care charges are about $1,184 per month per child, which was what was being offset by survivor benefits. So I see again, this about 14 children we know in Virginia foster care system that are military affiliated because of the loss of a parent. And then there's about 22 children in foster care that have other federal benefits under application because of a survivor benefit. So I'm hopeful that we can move passage of this bill and set these kids, due to no fault of their own, up for some level of success upon their release from the foster care system in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Report. I really like this bill. I just want to note that the Disability Law Center has been part of the stakeholder group on this and is very much in favor. Thank you, Colleen. And we are using this as a model because some foster youth are eligible for other federal benefits, SSDI, for example. So I think this is a really good vehicle to sort of open up that trust fund opportunity for our foster youth. Anybody in opposition to the bill? Okay, seeing none. Senator Rouse made a motion. It's a Section 1 bill, by the way. Senator Rouse made a motion to report, and Senator Williams-Graves seconded that. Will the clerk please open the roll?
Ayes 14, no 0.
Gratitude, Madam Chair and committee.
Thank you. Your bill reports. Okay, colleagues, this concludes, I'll ask staff, does this conclude our docket for the year, for the 2025 session? Well, before we rise, I want to take a moment to thank the wonderful staff who have supported us throughout this session. They've done incredible work. Hannah Yates, thank you. Taylor May, thank you. Jillian Conway has been our clerk, and Sophia Kotsky-Shirts. Did I not say your name properly? And my apologies in advance. But Sophia, we appreciate your work as well. So thank you all very, very much. And I'd like to acknowledge our wonderful pages. So would you like to stand up and introduce yourselves? Well, thank you, and thank you for serving the committee and all the work you do. You're really a big asset to the Senate, so we appreciate you as well. Unless there's any other comments or remarks anybody would like to make, we've completed our docket and the committee shall rise.
This is the Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. you.